Greasy greetings and slimy salutations, my feculent friends. Sugar Pants back from the basement with another bouquet of bile for your bemusement. 1987's The Kindred, a horror movie about a nasty little family secret that mom kept for just a little too long and insists that her son go burn it all down. So what will this murky movie mete out? Let's brew up that sleaze docket and see what's on the menu. We have 6 dead bodies, 1 dead dog, 6 cups blood, 0 naked breasts, 1 pill bottle of monster spooge, 5 gallons of tentacle ejaculate, 1,100 gallons of monster shit, 1 house in the middle of our street, 2 punnets cherry tomatoes. It doesn't have anything to do with the movie. I just wanted to say punnet. It's a word I didn't think would ever get on my show. 1 flaming car crash. 1 car launched into the water. 1 slimy mutant dog, cat, goat thing. 1 slimy bubbly arm. Vague empty statements cliche. Let's go check it out cliche. Extorting the criminal boss cliche. Dramatic thunderstorm cliche. Lightning emphasized statement cliche. Music soothes the savage beast cliche. Malfunctioning flashlight cliche. 2x4 to the gut. 2x4 to the face. Tentacle penetrated mouth. Tentacle penetrated ear. Tentacle penetrated nose. Tentacle wrapped throat. 1 imploding ear. 1 harpooned monster. 1 exploding electrical death. Curb stomped monster fetus. Monster fetus chewed back. Plot device watermelon. Watermelon tentacle birthing. Ominous audio tape snarls. Pickled fetuses in a jar. Pickled fetus attack jump scare. Severed pickled fetus arm. Pickled fetus hawk noises. Spontaneous fish transformation. Gloppy cartoon sound effects. 1 exploded house. And 2 girls, 1 monster bukkake. Our movie begins on the open road. Some jerk-off in a sports car isn't happy that he has to share the highway, and instead of just passing like a normal human being, has to scream like a lunatic at the old couple whose crime was going out that night. Unfortunately, he doesn't notice the fucking house in the road and crashes. The paramedics rush him away, but are quickly attacked. The crash victim is kidnapped, and the ambulance driver is in on whatever the hell this scam is. He's given a punch to make it look good, and is handed a wad of bills as payment. Now, the movie makes it quite clear this isn't the first time this has happened. Wouldn't somebody get suspicious about this? I mean, 1 kidnapped victim? Sure, whatever. It could totally happen. 2 kidnapped victims from the same fucking driver? Shenanigans. Anyway, turns out the bodies are being stolen so that Dr. Philip Lloyd can do his experiments. What are his experiments? I don't fucking know. He's got a lab full of slimy human monsters with really gross mutations, and he's also seen probing a hairless bubblegum cat or something. The fucking movie just shows us this and doesn't say anything about it. Just vague nonsense about how he's been a scientist for so long he doesn't have to answer to anybody anymore. So I guess that means he's up there with Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson? But our story is actually about John. He's a scientist who works for the same company as Dr. Lloyd, a company with a really shitty logo out front. When we meet him, he's told his mom is waking up. Turns out she was involved in a car crash and has been unconscious in the hospital for a vague amount of time. She tells John that he has to go up to her house and burn everything. Notes, leftover experiments, everything has to be destroyed. Suddenly she has a horrible realization, but can't speak a single coherent sentence that makes any sense at all. She insists that John destroy everything concerning the experiment about Anthony. John asks who Anthony is, and Mom replies,
"Your brother!"
Mom gets visited by Dr. Lloyd, and she doesn't seem too happy to see him. She tells him she'll stop whatever he's doing, but then she dies. John begins to round up his colleagues to head up to his mom's house. At the funeral, he's approached by a woman he's never met before who says John's mom was a major inspiration for her own studies. She asks to come along to help with the cleanup, and John seems glad to have her along. Everyone heads up to the house, and we get a very long, slow burn horror mystery about what the hell Mom was working on. Long story short, she took some cells from John and spliced them with hemocyanin, a protein found mostly in marine life, to create some kind of genetic hybrid. Unfortunately, the day she was working up the courage to end the entire experiment was the day she had her car accident. And since she was working in secrecy, it was allowed to continue growing long after she intended to put a stop to it. When I started watching this one, I was a little worried it was going to wimp out on us, mostly because it looks and feels a lot like a made-for-TV movie. And most of those weren't exactly heavy on the trash. Unless you count Valerie Bertinelli.
That seemed unnecessary.
But if you're patient enough, you'll get all sorts of slimy monster puppet action. At one point, a little beastie bastard hitches a ride in a watermelon, only to burst out and penetrate the fuck out of some poor girl's face like it's some live-action hentai or something. Like, this scene really carries a lot of fucking weight for this movie, because we go a long time before it happens, and it will be a long time before the next awesome thing happens. There's lots of opportunity for goo splatter, tentacle attacks, a lab full of pickled monster fetuses, including one that isn't quite dead yet. We fall into the monster's den underneath the house. One of the girls spontaneously transforms into a fish monster and then dies. Yeah. The monster is tricked into eating a fucking power line, and we get a really messy exploding electrical death which liquefies the beastie until it kind of resembles John after a Gwar concert. And the bastard Dr. Lloyd gets his own comeuppance by getting slimed, tentacled, and dragged into a watery death. But even when the whole thing seems over, we get a basement full of monster offspring and the plan of blowing the house to pieces. Covered in mutant fish, human goo, shit, and other fluids, our survivors cram into a car and make the long drive home, reeking like the beaches of the Jersey Shore during low tide. This one drops a few breadcrumbs of trash all along, but it doesn't really get going until the last 25 minutes or so. It's really one of those movies that feels like it takes itself a little too seriously, crammed full of pseudo-science-y babble, but doesn't really explain a lot of it. The whole movie has to deal with hemocyanin. I had to look it up, and it's basically a protein that transports oxygen throughout the bodies of invertebrates, most notably octopuses, which might explain why everything is death by tentacle in this one. But a lot of it's just glossed over, expecting the audience to just accept what's going on. Like in the case of Melissa, her whole deal is she has an illness that she got from handling hemocyanin. Dr. Lloyd has been supplying her with medication that has slowed its progress, but she's needing a stronger dosage. He says he'll make her one, but only if she can deliver Anthony to him. While she's explaining this, Anthony attacks. They carve up its tentacle, which goes all Peter North on a couple of the girls. And Melissa's disease reaches its final stage, turning her into a porpoise person. Okay, fine, whatever. But going on that flimsy explanation, shouldn't our entire cast be at risk for this same disease? They all get a pretty good dosage of this goo throughout the movie. Hell, at one point, Hart is attacked by the nasty boy and taken to the hospital. They specifically state his blood had heavy traces of hemocyanin. So much so they were able to take a giant fucking bottle sample of it. So Hart, and most likely everyone else in the car at the end of the movie, are going to become a small colony of really ugly fish people. Right? I don't know. This just felt like a setup for a sequel that never materialized. The Kindred isn't a bad movie, exactly. It's just really damn slow, and it feels sort of unfinished. It makes me wonder what got left on the cutting room floor once the editor got done putting it all together. And that leaves me with a really weird feeling for this one, because it feels like a competent movie, but just missing pieces that would have finalized it. But even though the monster effects were pretty on point, I will say there was one bit of audio editing that completely yanked me out of the movie. When Melissa takes the pickled fetus to Dr. Lloyd, they just straight up give it hawk noises. Like, how many sound effects did they go through before just ending on this one? Earlier we had the good doc working on this hairless goat dog thing, and it sounded like cat yowls. But they were altered. Great, fine, I like that. Then jump to straight up hawk cries. I don't know, flip them backwards maybe? Just make it slightly different? One of the writer-directors of The Kindred was Stephen Carpenter, who also wrote Blue Streak, Soul Survivors, and was one of the creators of the series Grimm. He also directed The Dorm That Dripped Blood, The Power, and Soul Survivors. Dr. Lloyd was played by Rod Steiger, who has 149 acting credits to his name, including Dr. Zhivago, In the Heat of the Night, The Amityville Horror, Mars Attacks, and End of Days. Kim Hunter was our scientific Mother Amanda, but you definitely know some of her other high-profile gigs. You just didn't see much of her face. She was Zira in Planet of the Apes, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and Escape from the Planet of the Apes. But she was also in A Streetcar Named Desire, Two Evil Eyes, and Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Our fishy little spy, Melissa, was played by Amanda Pays, who you could also see in Max Headroom, the movie and the series. One of my all-time favorite alien knockoffs, Leviathan, 1 episode of The X-Files, and 5 episodes of The Flash. And of course, Julia Montgomery was Cindy, but you definitely know her as Betty from the Revenge of the Nerds series. She was also in Up the Creek, Stewardess School, and Savage Justice. Well, I suppose that'll bring us to the end of another awful allotment. So until I greet you for the next questionable quotient, this is your dilapidated dingbat Sugar Pants. See you in your dreams.
Your room?
Want to see it?
Are you serious?